Hello. Hi, I'm old Carnivore Steve. And I want to thank everybody who's been inquiring about my well being or if I'm still alive. Well, I am. Officially now, I'm an octogenarian. I think my next goal is to make a nanogenarian. But one of the reasons that I haven't put out a video earlier is that, well, quite frankly, I strayed from the carnivore diet that I've been extolling. The carnivore diet was great. I had tremendous health benefits. But alas, I was led astray uh, by a gateway product, a gateway drug, watermelon. I just missed the sweetness there, and I got addicted to eating watermelon last summer. And well, the watermelon, it has citrulline in it, which is supposed to be great for your heart. It dilates the blood vessels and drops your blood pressure. And then it's got, what's the other one? Lycopene, which is supposed to be really beneficial to you too, to repair the body, and it's a great antioxidant. But unfortunately, because I got addicted to the sweetness, and I think one of the worst things for you today is sugar and carbohydrates, which break down into simple sugars, and pre-prepared foods, which all have all the various chemicals and preservatives in it. I think that's one of the problems. And when I went on the watermelon, it led me astray to other things that it was missing, like Haagen-Dazs, which definitely I don't think has any benefits to health. At any rate, I got back on the diet. And when I was off the diet, I started to get back some of the problems I had before. Some of the inflammation in the in my joints started up, and I was having trouble walking again. Chest pain started to return. Uh, Pretty much all of the problems. If you saw the first video I put out, there was like a list of 20 things. But a couple of the things I didn't mention, well, I did mention I was a smoker. Well, I didn't mention that I was a chain smoker for 50 years. I smoked on average 2.25 packs a day, which wasn't too good. And amazingly enough, my lungs weren't the problem. At least they aren't the problem now. But they were becoming a problem. I was having trouble breathing. I felt like I couldn't fill up my lungs. And when I went on the carnivore diet, I started practicing breathing, and then I lost weight. I lost 75 pounds on the carnivore diet in a year. And that weight loss, coupled with my breathing exercises, I totally didn't have any problems with my lungs after that. As a matter of fact, my pulse ox is usually at 100%. Rarely does it drop below 99. And I've measured that quite frequently. The other thing that I didn't mention was I had chronic heartburn. Going back to my late 20s, I also always had heartburn, and nothing would ever take care of it. I tried every over-the-counter drug in the world, Tums, Pepto-Bismol, and the other ones out there until the late 80s, I believe it was, when Pepsid came out, and it was a prescription drug. And I took that, and for the first time in my life, my heartburn went away. It was fantastic. And then, about 10 years later, it became an over-the-counter chewable drug. And it's the only thing that ever worked for me. But Pepsid's not really great for your health either. And toward the end there, I was munching about 3 a day, and you're not supposed to take more than what, 1 in 24 hours, they say. If it exceeds that, see your physician. Well, when I went on the diet, all that went away. My chronic heartburn went away. Everything was beautiful. And as I said, I started getting led astray. Well, when my symptoms started coming back, I went back on the diet. And people ask me, well, what exactly was your carnivore diet? Well, carnivore diet. Well, the diet was basically what they refer to as the lion diet. And it was beef, preferably grass-fed beef, not grass-finished, but grass-fed. And I did eat eggs and water and some salt. And that was pretty much it. And that's where I got the tremendous results. In a matter of weeks, I got those fantastic results from the carnivore diet. Well, when I came off the diet and then had to go back on, what happened was I got very bad back pain. And then after being on the diet a couple of weeks, the back pain went away, but all of a sudden I got pain in the bladder area and I couldn't urinate. And I ended up having to go to the emergency room at the hospital. And what I think happened actually was I think that I probably dropped a kidney stone. Because when I went off the diet, one of the meals I loved was eating a steak with a baked potato. And somewhere along the line, I heard that, well, you get the most benefit from the baked potato is when you eat the skin, because the skin is where all the nutrients were. Well, actually, the skin is where all the oxalates are, too. And I believe oxalates help form kidney stones. And when I think, although I can't prove it, that I dropped a kidney stone and got that blockage, I ended up at the hospital and I was in bad shape. My kidneys backed up with urine. My bladder backed up with urine to the kidneys. Everything was distended, or basically it swelled out of shape. The bladder was swollen, the kidneys were swollen, my BUN and creatinine skyrocketed through the roof. My kidneys started to shut down. I wasn't getting filtration. And they went in there and did an emergency surgery, is what it amounts to. They went in and what do they call it? Basically, they went in and they cut the bladder out. They found a cancerous tumor in the bladder. And that tumor was removed, but the person who went in there to do it, they did a CAT scan on me, and they said everything was so murky they couldn't actually see much of what they were doing. But the CAT scan seemed to pick up a tumor on my kidney and possibly on the urethra. So the original urologist that did the work, and it was a female, and it was my unfortunate experience to have this happen over a weekend. And they say, well, it's not a great idea to go into the hospital on the weekend because most of the experienced people don't work on the weekends. You'll usually have one or two, but not all of them. And I was at a hospital that also was a training hospital. So most of the young nurses there were trainees, and what they ended up doing was putting a Foley in me, and a trainee did it, and it was not pleasant. But I'm getting off the point there. The point was that this young female urologist who said, well, I don't work on males, I only work on females most of the time. And wow, you had the biggest uh, prostate that I've ever seen. It was really swollen, and we took out a piece of the prostate to do a biopsy on. And she says, well, it looks like, you might have to have your kidney removed and the urethra and the bladder. And she did it with a smile on her face. I was not too happy. I don't know, maybe that was just my impression, because pretty much he talked to me after I came out of the surgery, and I was still recovering from anesthesia. And when I woke up, they asked me how I was feeling, if I had any chest pain. I said, yeah, I did have a tinge of chest pain, I thought I felt. So immediately they put me on an EKG, and they were monitoring my heart, and they put me in, they didn't call it critical care, but it was above standard care. And I was right across from the nurse's station with all these tubes sticking out of me and the wires, and they were monitoring me very closely. But my blood test for the heart, most of the kinetic enzyme tests they give, they all came out normal, but I guess the EKG showed some stress on it, and they were worried about it, so they monitored me very closely. And they came into my room. I'm visited by a urologist, I'm visited by the nephrologist, and the regular GP, and the nurses, and they were coming in every 2 hours and taking measurements and blood tests. I mean, they stuck more needles than me. And I was in there for about a week. And finally, they let me go. They took the Foley out to see if I would urinate on my own, and they couldn't do it, and they let my bladder overfill. The urologist told them they should check, see how full it was about after 4 hours of being off the Foley, and they didn't. They went 8 hours, and I'm pressing the call button because I'm in pain and nobody's showing up. And finally, they decided they were going to put the Foley back in, and they got like 1,800 cc's out of there. And I think the average male bladder holds, about 450 to 600 cc's. So I was lucky my bladder didn't burst, and I didn't have go septic. But I went home, and right now, well, that's not the end of the story. The story is I was self-catheterizing. They took the Foley out. They gave me catheters to take home. And after a while, a couple of days, my catheter plugged up, and I couldn't even self-catheterize. So I had to go back to the emergency room. But this time I went to a different hospital. And I got a different urologist, one that I felt a little more confidence in. And what happened briefly was they had to go back in, and they saw that my bladder had a huge blood clot in it. So they went in there and they cleared out the blood clot, and they washed it out with peroxide. And the urine, they kept me for another 4 days in emergency there, maybe it was 5, and not emergency, but at the hospital. And things cleared up, and I went home, and the situation is now where I have to go back in about a month and they're going to go back in and see what they can see. It turns out that the what they called a tumor on the kidney was an exophilic cyst, which basically is on the external part of the kidney, and it was filled with liquid. And typically, they're not cancerous, but the bladder definitely had a cancerous growth in it, and they're going to have to watch it very carefully, and they're going to go in and take another look. So in the meantime, I went back on the carnivore diet, and what I'm going to be doing, and I feel great. I mean, other than the fact that I'm self-cathing right now, and hopefully I won't have to do that for much longer if the kidneys or the muscles in my bladder strengthen. I'm going to have to watch it very closely, and they might have to, I'm sure they're going to be giving me treatments like every 6 weeks. And then if it goes well, they're going to lessen the treatments. So what I plan to do now is go on stay on a strict carnivore diet, but I'm going to add a few things in it. If you're familiar with what do they call it, angiogenesis, which is basically the formation of blood vessels, as I understand it. And in order for cancer to survive, or a tumor to survive, it has to have blood. And usually when you get a tumor, the blood vessels in the tumor aren't as well structured as your regular blood vessels. They're weaker in other aspects. And there is some research out there, that some of it anecdotal, but it says that you can starve a tumor. Problem is, you don't want to starve yourself while you're starving the tumor. So I'm going to do a combination of, and they say when you start to starve it, the weak blood vessels die off sooner, and the tumor cannot survive without blood. So my approach is basically going to be to try autophagy. That's the word I'm looking for, which is basically when you go into heavy ketosis, because you eliminate all the carbs and all the sugars from your diet, and you go into ketosis. And when you go into ketosis, what it does is it helps theoretically to kill off some of those bad blood vessels and repair the good ones. But there's a danger in that also, because they say even when you're in ketosis, you can feed the tumor. There's no absolute on it. Nobody really knows. But there is a theory about maintaining a certain metabolic balance, which I'm going to be doing. And if you maintain this metabolic balance, there's a good chance that your tumor won't come back. And I will be reporting on the carnivore diet and the tumor. And I have to tell you again that as far as the carnivore diet goes, I think I'd already be dead if it wasn't for the carnivore diet, because there were a lot of other things that were really going on that were affecting me. I mentioned in the previous video about the chest pains, the angina, the inflammation in the joints, not being able to walk up and down the steps. Well, I can do all that. I mean, and I exercise to a degree. I'm not out there lifting weights and everything, but I do, used to walk a couple miles a day. I haven't the last couple of weeks because I've been in a hospital bed. So it's been a little difficult to do that. And even walking down the hall, I had to carry a couple of IVs with me and walk up and down the hall. But, that's one thing I have to say about the hospitals, too. They had me, they give away drugs like popcorn over there. if you want Tylenol, you just ask for it. They'll give you Tylenols anytime you ask for it. They constantly wanted to put me in Colace because they figured, well, I needed it to have a proper bowel movement. I didn't. Um, well, I guess when you're over 80 years old, they think you have to have a nurse on each hand to carry you around. But I'm pretty well independent. And as I said, I walk a couple miles a day. Used to do squats, not with too much weight, but I can do a squat and have my butt cheeks touch my calves and get back up with no problem at all. So my flexibility being on the carnivore diet's been excellent. So the only thing I have to worry about now is the bladder cancer. Now, naturally, I did some research about bladder cancers, and one of the reasons I brought up smoking earlier was they claim that over 50% of the people who come down with bladder cancer smoked at one time or are active smokers now. And the other major thing was being subjected to chemical contaminants internally. And I was in the service many years ago, and there's this thing called the Camp Lejeune Justice Act of 2022. And what that had to do with was their water source was contaminated with chemicals. And many of the servicemen that went through there came down with various forms of cancer and other diseases. And right now, there are 90,000 claims against, or trying to get the funds that are going to be set aside with the Camp Lejeune Justice Act of 2022. I haven't went after it because I was so many years ago and I was a smoker and I did other things, but during the time period that they were contaminated, I was there, which was basically, I was there for the Cuban Missile Crisis and spent some time there. So it's interesting, and you know, that's life, so you never know where things are going to come from. But I will be reporting on my progress, and one of the things is, as I said, other than that one problem, and I think that if I really did drop a stone and it was blocking my urination, that might have saved my life because I didn't know that I had a tumor. Well, if you listened to me this far, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And if you like it or learned anything, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And again, thank you very much, and goodbye.